I kind of want to talk about how I transitioned to running a side gig, to being a business operator, and now I'm the owner of multiple businesses. And I own businesses, and I don't operate in business anymore, in my businesses. So we'll talk about that here. So real quick, this is something I talked about last year. I wanted to bring it up just based on some conversations that I've had with people this week. This wasn't originally part of my presentation, but I threw it in last minute to just talk about it. So stop lowering your prices, people. Stop lowering them. And what I mean by that is stop engaging in the race to the bottom. Don't be that person that comes in, has to be the lowest price, has to beat by a penny. The buy box rotates. I know this group knows that, but the buy box actually rotates. So the purpose of the buy box, in my belief, is Amazon wants to present the very best offer to their customer, right? So what does the best offer translate to? How can we take that and apply it to how we price, our pricing strategy? So I believe that there are 5 factors. Well, there's more than 5, but these are the top 5 in my opinion. And again, this is just my opinion. These are the top 5 factors in determining who gets the buy box. So I do believe that number 1 is competitive price. That does not mean best price. Competitive price can mean different things, right? Our suggested strategy and my personal strategy is I match the buy box within my preset min and max profit margins. Okay, there are times where we will be a penny above. Sometimes we'll be a percentage or 2% above, but never a penny below, never a dollar below. I have a 2% FBA rule, meaning I feel if we are within 2% of the lowest FBA price, we have an equitable position to get the buy box. I also have what I call as a 10% FBM rule. So most everything we do is FBA. So if we're FBA and we're competing against FBM, we can be priced up to typically 10% above and still get the buy box. Okay. Again, my personal rules, my personal belief, and I build my pricing algorithm around these. Number 2, I think is equally important to price is the fulfillment method. In most cases, Amazon gives preference to FBA. We know that, right? They want to make their money off the fees. That's their whole business model is now around geared towards getting prime customers and doing the FBA method. So there are areas where that's not true. Some heavier product, we do see FBM getting the buy box more, but by and large is FBA. Now this is one that I continually harp on, and I think is very, very important, is inventory levels and inventory placement. And I just like to use as an illustration the audience as the US. So when we were in the other room, it was much easier because it was spread this way and not this way. But if we just assume that this narrow strip of chairs is the West Coast, Washington, Oregon, California, we got the Rockies here, got the Midwest, we got the East Coast, right? So if, can't see her, Denise. So Denise here, let's say she's up here in Washington, right? She sends in product. She sends in 3 to 5 units, right? She's going to probably send somewhere in Oregon or Washington, and her inventory is probably going to stay somewhat localized here because she didn't send in very many units, right? They may send one down to maybe Vegas or California, but it's going to stay right here. And so over here, Ed, superstar Ed, he's, so he gets on to buy Denise's product, but he's over in Maine, right? Well, he's probably not going to see Denise's product in the buy box because he's going to see more localized inventory because Amazon wants to deliver to him in a day, right? Where now if Denise sends in 20 units or 50 units because there's a lot of demand for this product, that's going to go to her wherever she ships locally, right? And then it's going to get spread across the entire country pretty equitably. So there will be inventory on the East Coast. So when Ed logs in, now Denise has a much better opportunity to see the buy box. Okay, so the buy box is regional. And so I believe that to get a really good representation of my buy box equity, we test pretty aggressively. And so we'll send in more than those 3 to 5 units to start. We'll send in what we believe we can sell usually in 2 weeks as our initial test, just so I can get my inventory spread across the country better, and I get more of the buy box. So my personal belief there. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but 4 and 5, account health, seller rating. I'm sorry.
On the inventory thing, like when you see their level, is that their inventory level across the whole U.S., or is it just for where you're?
So like on Keepa, where you see like how many units they have, that's typically their full inventory level. Okay. Yeah, and obviously you're not going to know where that inventory is, but yeah. So account health, seller rating, all plays into it. We have like a health score with Amazon in the background, and based on our number of ratings and the score, and do we have IP claims, is our account in good standing, will also determine our buy box eligibility. Okay, brand registration, I hear, helps with that, helps with our score with Amazon. So they're there. Wasn't the main purpose of my presentation, so we'll move on from there. And as a bonus, I do believe if we're willing to spend money with Amazon, pay-per-clicks, coupons, Amazon's also going to reward those people who are giving them more money to get in front of customers with a bigger percentage of the buy box. So I know this through experience of coupons. There's a product I wasn't getting the buy box at all for over a month, and all we did was throw a 5% coupon on there, and then we started getting the buy box. Didn't even change my price. Put that 5% coupon on there, and we started getting the buy box like crazy. So my personal beliefs, you're going to have to be real loud back there.
Would you say that's even on items that you're not advertising, or just because you are advertising for most of your other items also?
That I don't know. That's a really good question. I believe it's exclusive to the products you're spending money on, and I spend money on every product unless it doesn't perform, and then I pull it out of that campaign. But I just do a simple 5-cent ad campaign for most of my stuff. But just the fact that I'm willing to spend money, Amazon's going to reward me with the buy box if my competitors are not spending money on those same products. So, all right, guys. So if you want to talk more about buy box, we can later. But I want to get into the meat of my presentation, if you will, my multiple streams of income journey and how I built the team for success. So. In 2007, I moved, well, before 2007, I moved to Arizona, grew up in Salt Lake, moved to Arizona, went to Arizona State, and graduated in 2007 with a degree in business and communication. I immediately took a job with a distributor of electronic components, TTI. I worked there for 12 years. So I really got to know the industry of distribution. And so when I started my wholesale, or my Amazon business, it made sense for me to go straight to wholesale, because it was what I had done for years and what I understood. So that's where I went. Great job, loved it. I went from Mr. College graduate to the last 5 years, I was the #1 sales guy in the region there. And they hated it when I left, but it was time. So in 2014, my largest account got bought out by a company in India. And I was afraid that overnight, 65% of my commission was going to disappear and get moved, production was going to get moved to India. And so out of necessity, we started looking for a side gig. We got to make some money at home. I came home, told my wife, and I'm like, we got to figure something out. So after a couple of months, we landed on photo booths. So we started our first photo booth business, CandaPix Photo Booths, in the fall of 2014. Started with just one booth, added a second one 3 months later. Now within that section of the business, we have 3 photo booths, and my employee who's been with me for like 6 years is going to buy the business from me next month. So we're looking to exit that. And then 3 months later in December, we started our Bubble Basher business, so bubble soccer. So have you guys seen those big bubbles you wear on your shoulders, you run around and crash into each other, knock each other over, play soccer? That's what that is. A lot of fun. We have like 65 bubbles now. And Richard, my office manager, is going to take over that business and buy it from me in a couple months as well. So we're getting out of the event business for the most part, except for Trend Booths. Trend Booths is now our Apple-based photo booth. COVID actually, like, it hurt the business for 2 years, but it kind of transformed it to now where we're doing like digital drop-offs, and it's amazing. I don't have to hire attendants and send attendants to be out there the whole event, and it's great. Just a couple days ago, a corporate client, they're having a convention in Phoenix, booked me for 4 days, $2,000 booking. All I have to do is show up, turn it on, come back 4 days later. So it's a great model. So anyways, that's my event business. Now, so what did we learn from this business? This is where we started. Where did we learn? I think the #1 thing I learned here is my time is more valuable than money. And here's what I mean by that. So in October 2014, when we started with one photo booth. We were able to book events at about $500 event, right? Give or take a few $100 depending on what we were doing. But $500 was our average. My wife and I would go out and we'd work these events together. And Friday, Saturdays, typically when events were, weddings, corporate events, parties, whatever. Friday, Saturday. So in Arizona, I'm sure you guys know, it is very hot. So from about June 1st to about October 15th, nothing happens. Nobody goes outside, right? So it's an 8-month of the year business. So roughly 32 weeks, my maximum earning potential with this business was $32,000. As a side gig, fantastic, right? But it was nothing we could do full time. I couldn't leave my job for $32,000. We did all of the work. We kept 100% of our earnings. It was a beautiful thing. But when we were booking, we started booking and getting multiple requests for the same day, and we couldn't handle that, obviously. So we decided to hire. And what we did, instead of hiring, just buying one new booth and hiring one employee, we bought one new booth and we hired 2 employees. And so we transitioned from in the business, running every event, to working on the business. Now, our $500 bookings became $400 earnings because we were paying $100 to our employees. But now instead of maximizing at $500 or $1,000 a weekend, now I can do 400 times 4. I can do 1,600 a weekend and not have to do anything, right? So for me, that just like turned a light on. And I'm like, okay, I'm making less, but I'm making more, right, if that makes sense. So we launched our bubble soccer business in December. At the same time we bought that second booth, we hired an employee to run the bubble soccer event business too. And there's a lot there, but really basically what it boils down to is adding these other divisions. I was able to increase my maximum earning potential to $70,000 a year, doing very little work, and keeping about 75% of the earnings, right? Because I had people in place now doing these events for me. So before COVID hit, 2019, I think we did like 300 events. I did maybe 5% of them, because I have an incredible team that does these events for us. So the last 2 years have been really slow. This year's been pretty good again. We're back, maybe not quite to 2019 level, but the event industry is back. So today we manage 8 photo booths, 65 bubbles, and got a full team of event coordinators for us. So it's a great thing. My wife still does the management as far as like the sales, and does the like creating the layouts and stuff for the prints and stuff, but she loves that there. So that's that one. In 2015, so a year later, I'm sitting at home on the couch, just scrolling through Facebook, and an old high school buddy that I used to wrestle with makes a post about how him and his brother are selling on FBA, and they're absolutely killing it. They have a link, an affiliate link to some course, right? And so you can learn about it. And so I start watching these videos and getting really excited about Amazon. And I can sell private label on Amazon. I can import stuff from China. This is going to be fantastic. And then it gets to the price tag, and it's like $10,000. And I'm like, holy crap, I'm not doing that. But I love the idea of FBA, right? So we started searching, and that's how we found Jim's community back in 2015. Got the pack, and for me, wholesale just made sense. Right? The wholesale, we'll get into wholesale a little bit, but wholesale is a numbers game, right? You're going to get a lot of companies that don't want to work with you. We had a lot of great success right up front. Our first 2 companies that we reached out to said yes. We were batting 100% right from the beginning. So we were able to scale pretty quickly. So we got our first sell November 1st of 2015, and we did $45,000 in the first 2 months of business. Then our first full year in business, $350,000. Then by year number 2, we hit $1 million. And you'll see a trend there. Year 3, we were also at $1 million. Year 4, we were also at $1 million. We were tapped out, right? Like, I'm working 40 hours a week. We have the event business. Again, most of our events are outsourced, but we're still kind of managing the business, right? And now we're running $1 million Amazon business, and it's just me and my wife. From time to time, we'll have babysitters. I have 3 little girls, and we had babysitters over. Then we'd have them like help prep packages and stuff like that. But we're tapped out. We're maxed out. And so we decided at that point that the only way we could push this forward is if I quit my job, we get a warehouse, and we start building a team, just like we did with our event business, right? So I put in my 4 weeks. My boss wouldn't accept anything less. So we bought a warehouse. We stuck Richard out there in the warehouse for 4 weeks by himself, and basically told him to figure it out. It was a little nicer than that. Shelly spent a lot of afternoons out there with him, and then I'd go out there after 5 and help him out. But basically, it was like, hey, go figure it out. It's a little like 900 square foot warehouse, but it allowed us to grow, and it allowed us to fuel what we had already figured out, right? And so I joined him 4 weeks later. Richard and I went to work, and at that point, we were both doing everything. You know, we would both source for a week. We'd place POs, and then all the product would come in, and then we would both package them for the next week. And then it was just this cycle of like we were all doing everything. And it got to a point where we needed a little bit of help, so we started specializing and put Richard in charge of wholesale. And we had this other guy come in and start doing the boxes and packing and stuff like that again. And from this point forward, we started growing and putting people in place that they could specialize in and grow their skills in that certain skill set area. So you can see that in 2019, it was about, I think about June or July that we added Richard, and then I joined him in September, and then we were able to grow that year 10%. But then that next year, with a team in place, we grew to 2.5 million, and then 3.5 million last year. So we're kind of pacing that this year. It's been a struggle this year, I'll be honest with you. I think we're down about 10%. So we found some really good wholesale accounts the last few weeks. Hopefully we can push it back up till we can make up that 10% in fourth quarter. But that's where my Amazon business is. And then I did start a second account at the beginning of the year. I wanted to kind of experiment and see what's the environment like today versus 7 years ago when we started. Can I, by myself, without my employees, can I grow a new business from $0 to $1 million? And what are the struggles and challenges of a new business doing that? So I do have a second account. Be careful doing this. If you do it, make sure you do it with Amazon's permission. Make sure you do it with a separate business entity, all the things. But now we're doing about $12,000 a month for the last 2 months on this new account. Just landed 3 new wholesale accounts. We got 6 wholesale accounts there. So we got some good momentum on this new account. So what did we learn there? Again, back to my team. And one thing I really learned that I picked up is what I want to talk about next is the character traits of employees and myself and how that equates to what we built. So if you don't mind, if you could develop one core character trait for your business and in life, what would that be? So a little participation if you don't mind. I'm sorry? Honesty. Resilience. Okay. Consistency. Integrity. Patience. I think this guy cheated. Self-starter. Love that one. Back here. Focus. Okay. Accountability. I love them. They're all good. They're all great. Like, is anyone better than the other, right? Who's right? Who's to say that I'm right? I'm right, by the way, but.
The ability to let go and have other people do things for you.
Love it. The ability to let go and have other people do things for you. Awesome. There was one more I heard. Delegate. Okay, perfect. Okay, all right. So I want to talk about what mine is for me, and you're not wrong, but for me, mine is integrity. And here's why. I like things that I can measure, things that I can put into an equation, things that my brain can figure out, right? So integrity to me is about honoring your personal truth. And truth with a small t, not truth with a capital T, but what's personally true to you and being true to yourself, right? So the equation for integrity that I have is a lot like a batting average. So do we have any baseball players, any baseball fans in here? By the way, raise hand right here. I'm sorry, what's your name? Dan? Dan, explain to me what a batting average is.
It's the average of how many hits you get, how many times you get on base when you're swinging away.
Perfect. So it's a score out of 1,000. How many times you get on base, you get a hit and get on base, right? So in baseball, what's a good batting average? 250. So high 2s, low 3s, is a good batting average. And what that means is if you get up and you get a hit 3 times out of 10 at bats, or 2.5 times out of 10 at bats, you're a good baseball player, right? That's a good batting average. 300, you're an all-star, absolutely. So, but integrity, if you're at a 3 out of a 10, I'm not going to hire you, right? I don't want to deal with you. But so what that means to me though is integrity is connected to trust, right? So if I commit to you to do something, if I commit to I don't know, you ask me to do something, I commit to it, I commit to my health regimen, my eating regimen, my spiritual regimen. If I commit to things, how many times out of 10 do I keep my commitment to you or to myself, right? So I personally like to think that I have an integrity score of about 8 or 9 out of 10, right? I'm not perfect, but for me, like if I commit to something, to you, to my wife, to my kids, to my employees, I do it. And those occasions where I can't, or I don't, I have a standard operating procedure in place to correct and adjust, right? Before I just don't do it or don't show up, I let them know, hey, this came up, or, you know, I thought I could do it, but I can't, and here's why. And so we pivot and we adjust to keep my integrity score high with my family, with my employees, right? So a little hiring exercise that I like to do when I bring new people on board is I like to explain that integrity score thing to them. So if you will, in your mind, I'm sure many of you have, come up with an integrity score that you have for yourself. How many times out of 10, when you commit to something, when you say yes, do you follow through, right? We don't need to have raise of hands, but in your mind, you have a score, right? So then you explain that to a potential hire. And let's say this hire is the CEO of your business, so the most important hire of your business. They're going to come in, they're going to be your Richard for your business, and they're going to manage it for you. Now, you explain this to them. They tell you what their integrity score is. If their integrity score matches your integrity score, do you hire them? What do you think? You don't tell me your integrity score, but if it matches yours, do you hire them?
No.
Someone said no. You said no. Why not?
better than you.
Okay, all right. If you're, and I do see a lot of yeses, so for me, since I have a high integrity score, if their score matches mine, I'm going to hire them, right? And if you have a low integrity score, if your integrity score is 4, are you going to hire an 8 or 9? Like in theory, you might want to, but you're probably not going to, right? You have trust issues with yourself. You're going to be attracted to other people who have trust issues, right? So I believe that 8s and 9s hire 8s and 9s. A players hire A players. B players hire C and D players, right? If you have an integrity score yourself of 4, if you feel that you don't have that trust built in to your integrity score with yourself, you're going to be attracted to those same types of people, right? And that's going to be disastrous for your business. And so if you can't trust yourself because you have a low integrity score, how can you trust others to run your organization? How can you trust them? So how do you rapidly increase your integrity score? I believe that you stop giving false yeses. Or we live in a society where we're almost like yes men, right? Like we say yes to a lot of things because we live in a mindset of abundance, right? We're always saying yes to this, we're saying yes to this. Now, if we can stop giving false yeses and be mindful of those yeses and those no's that we give, we're going to raise our integrity score. If we say yes and commit to something to our spouse or to our employees and we figure out that we can't do it, we need to have that standard operating procedure in place to where we can say, no, I can't, and readjust and tell them why and adjust my commitment so that I raise my integrity score, my trust level with my employees, with my spouse, with my kids. So perfection doesn't mean being perfect. Having a 10 out of 10 doesn't mean I'm going to be perfect every time I commit, but it's about adjusting expectations when necessary. Winning is saying yes to the right things and no to the wrong things. It's about honoring yourself when you say no. So the journey from yes to no to yes, when we're kids, I imagine as adults here, most of us have kids probably. What do we say to our kids a lot? We say no, right? Don't run across the street. Don't touch that. No, you can't do that, right? So we raise our children, especially probably through adolescence, in a society of no. They're used to hearing no. And as they become adults, they figure out that everything is yes, right? Do I want to go to this party? Yes, I do. Do I want to take this job? Do I want to go to this college? Like, yes, 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 because we want to live in a world of abundance. So we're used to telling ourselves yes, and that kind of translates into everything else we do. People ask us to do things. People ask us to be places. Yeah, I can do that. Yeah, I'll be there. But then we don't, right? So we need to transition back to a no when it's not the right opportunity or when it affects my integrity, right? So we just need to create standards for when to say yes and when to say no. And in business, say no, in my opinion, to everything that pays less than your hourly wage. So what I like to do for this exercise is, how many people in here are employees? Have a 9 to 5? Okay, probably a little less than half. How many people are full-time entrepreneurs? Work for themselves? Okay, about 60-40. It's probably about what it was in the first class. So if you're an employee, you already know your hourly wage, right? Let's say it's $40 an hour. Your employer says you're worth $40 an hour, and that's what he pays you. As a $40 an hour salary or hourly wage guy or gal, you do tasks that are $10 an hour tasks, I'll bet, right? You have $15 an hour tasks. I'm guarantee you have $40 an hour tasks because that's what you get paid. But you also have $100 hour tasks, $200 hour tasks, right? So as an employee, we need to learn to say no to those lower value tasks and find a way to get an assistant, hire a virtual assistant. Your employer probably won't like that, but find a way to say no to those those $10 an hour tasks. About 20% of what you do, you should say no to. So you should focus on that higher end. You know, if you're always doing $100 an hour tasks, $200 an hour tasks, when it comes time to give out that raise, who's going to get the raise? The guy who's stuck doing all the $10, $15 an hour tasks, or the guy who focuses up here bringing value to the business at the $100 an hour tasks? So as an entrepreneur, I believe that's flipped. I believe as a business owner, I need to be saying no to about 80%. And it's not always a no, it's either a no or delegate, right? Either miss out or delegate, in my opinion. So as an entrepreneur, let's say I value my time. Let's say it's $200 an hour, right? So anything that's valued, and I put a dollar amount on all the individual tasks we do as an Amazon seller or an entrepreneur, anything that's valued at less than that $200 an hour, I either need to say no to, I need to miss out, or I need to delegate. Right? If someone comes to me and says, hey, will you spend the next 2 weeks with me teaching me how to sell on Amazon? I'll pay you $1,000. Right? Is that $1,000 for 2 weeks worth it to me? It's not, right? So I either need to say no or I need to delegate, right? So maybe I give it to a team member, an employee to do it for me, and we take a split or something like that, right? But it's no or miss out is how I see this. So, and what we do is for those lower value tasks, we get virtual assistants, we get employees, we do software, whatever it is to build our team that can then transition and take those low dollar tasks. And what does that do for your business over time? If you are constantly focused on those tasks that make that hourly wage or higher, what does that do to our business? It grows, exactly. You're focusing on the growth. You're focusing on bringing revenue into your business. And on that lower stuff, you're focused on building a team that can do this stuff for you. So, I just understand the value of time was the biggest takeaway I've taken from my Amazon business. If you want to live 1,000 lives, don't waste time doing the things you don't want to do and live by conscious design. Here's my team. It's taken us a few years to build this up, but these are my rock stars. Richard Clough, he's been at the table with me all week. Hopefully you've got a chance to meet him. He's my warehouse manager. He's my right-hand man. He's like my little brother. Awesome dude. He manages when I'm away. He manages when I decide to pull out of the Amazon business for a season and focus on an additional revenue stream. This past, I guess it started in probably March, I pulled myself completely out of my Amazon business for 2 months to focus on learning a new venture that we'll talk about here in a second. And he ran the show. He does a little bit of the event business stuff. He started off as one of my original Bubble Soccer guys and photo booth guys. He doesn't do a lot of that anymore. He helps coach on my team. So some people have been assigned to him as the coach, and we kind of split that ourselves. And now he's a partner in my business. So he is a third partner. I think it's a really cool, unique situation where I brought my employee in. And two of my employees, my warehouse manager, my office manager, are now my equal partners in our new prep center. It does a couple things. One, like they buy in. Two, like he can't leave now, right? He's bought in. So, and you know, I would hate to replace him. So under him, I have my warehouse manager, Rome, who's actually his brother. He's the other partner in the prep center. He runs our warehouse, and he does it so much better than I ever did. He's put in processes, different softwares, and we're killing it in the warehouse because of the stuff he did, not the stuff I did. Under him, the assistant, warehouse manager, some warehouse workers. Also under Richard is our OA/RA sourcing lead / shopper, Brad. He also runs one of the event businesses. He's buying one of them from me. And then he does some Turo stuff for me as well. On the other side, we got Alexis. She's my buyer. And then our 3 virtual assistants in the Philippines, Marga, Nat, and Jenny. They're great. So that's my team. As you can see, like not everybody has one role. A lot of these people are event coordinators in my event business. A lot of them have stuff they do in my Turo business. But it's great to have these guys in place in my warehouse all day, all week, to pull when I need to do different tasks. But this is my Rockstar team. I couldn't do what I do without them. Like I said, in my 4-day in person, the biggest compliment we get, and I think we do really good with content. I think we teach a great course of that 4-day event if anyone's interested. That's my shameless plug. But I think what we do the best is this team right here. And that's what the people always acknowledge us for. And I can't tell them thank you enough. So, I'm sorry? 8 local employees plus myself and then 3 virtual assistants. That's my whole team. Yep. So we've had other part-timers. And we've had people come and go. Like, I try to use this integrity thing. I use my wife to help me with interviews. She'll sit in with me. She's a much better judge of character than I am. I trust way too much, I think. At least that's what she says. But she's got a great judge of character, so she'll sit in and help me. But we've had a buyer. My first hire as a buyer, like she was stealing hours from me. She was clocking in from home and doing some shady stuff. So we've had people we've had to let go. It hasn't been all roses, but it's been good. So I want to talk real quick about wholesale. So jump out of the multiple streams of income. I am the wholesale guy. So this is what I build my wholesale searches around. This is anybody know what an avatar is? Probably a pretty common term. In marketing, your avatar is your ideal client, right? So our ideal brand that we're reaching out to fits these parameters. So we do a lot of brand direct wholesale. A couple ways to do wholesale: distribution, wholesalers, and directly to the manufacturer. I'm a huge fan of direct to the manufacturer. It's the hardest account to get. But it's the account that lasts the longest. It's where you can develop real relationships. You can help implement MAP, minimum advertised price. It's where you can help them get brand registered. When you have that direct relationship with the brand, it lasts so much longer than a distribution account. So again, hardest to get, that's where we focus. Our product level approach is this first section where we look for products that have 3 or more FBA sellers. We want 3 or more because we want it to not be private label. If it has 1 FBA seller, it's private label. If you have 2 FBA sellers, it's typically a pretty locked in exclusive agreement with the 2 sellers. So we're looking for 3, 4, or more because those brands are typically more inclined to allow 1 additional seller. And so that's our approach there. We don't want the brand to be the only FBA seller, again, because that goes back to private label. It goes back to the brand controlling the listing. If they're the only FBA seller, they're not going to give us authorization to become a wholesale account and sell on Amazon. We look for Amazon to be, if the brand is one of multiple FBA sellers, it's them and 2 or 3 more, then we will approach the brand because it looks like they have a history of allowing people to sell. We don't like competing with Amazon. So if Amazon's on the listing, if they have an in-stock rate of over 15%, we stay away from those. We typically look for a resale between $15 and $150. We do have some more expensive stuff, but you have, last week we had a $2,500 refund, and man, that stuff hurts, right? So we're getting away from like the really expensive stuff, but that $15 to $150 is our sweet spot. We're looking for products on the product level, products that sell at least $2,000 a month. And the hope is, too, that brand has multiple products, and so we're building a brand profile of over $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 a month. We want the star rating to be 3.8 and above, sometimes 4 and above. We don't want to deal with garbage product, have a lot of returns. Typically, with my students, I teach that go after standard size products. Unless you have the ability to LTL and do some of that more advanced stuff, then stay in the standard products range and keep your shipping costs down. And then we love to keep an eye out for Keepa charts that indicate MAP. So we're looking for pricing that's just flat, right? And if it's not flat, we'll still go after it, and we'll try to help the brand put in MAP pricing and stuff, but we love it when it's MAP. And then as a brand level approach, we're looking for brands that are typically under 100,000. We're not looking for bigger brands ourselves, but we have a commercial address. We have a lot of the things that the bigger brands will accept us. But as you're new to wholesale, I kind of recommend $100,000 a month as a total brand roll up. I like to say if you've never heard of the brand, but it's selling well on Amazon, that's a good opportunity to get a wholesale account there. You don't want to be going after the Nikes and the Adidas and all those guys. You're not going to get a wholesale account with those mega brands. And we also look for oversaturated accounts or brands that have tons and tons of FBA sellers. That's a good opportunity to approach it from a consulting side. So help them clean it up, get brand registered, help put in a MAP agreement. And we've landed some really good consulting clients with this approach as well. So MAP is minimum advertised price. So you can't price fix, right? They can't make you sell at a certain price, but they're going to make you sign an agreement that you will, right? So say MAP is $20. You cannot sell it below that $20. So what it does is it helps eliminate that race to the bottom, where you guys face that a lot in arbitrage, OA and RA. When we work with brands that have MAP, we just don't see that a lot. Okay. All right, so that's my little pitch on wholesale. If you want to have more conversation on wholesale, I would love to have the conversation with you guys. I love wholesale. I believe it is the most sustainable, scalable business model on Amazon. All right, so 2019. All right, I got 15 minutes. I got to hurry. All right, in 2019, I quit my job, bought a gym, started having panic attacks, my health started declining, and it wasn't a good fit for me, and so I pivoted, and I sold that gym in a couple of months. So don't be afraid. I've done a lot of things. A lot of things work out. Not everything works out, right? If you go with a bad idea, you realize it's a bad idea, don't be afraid to pivot and pull out of there. So, all right, so my number 5 income stream is Amazon coaching. We have the 4-day in person. We did the Proven Wholesale course last fall. Anybody in here take that course? Few people? Okay. It's part of the pack now. So if you have the pack, you have access to it. It's still for sale by itself if you want to buy it by itself, but otherwise get the pack and then you get it for free. Number 6, PPP, Proven Product Partnering. That's a consulting. I love this one. You don't have to buy inventory. You just have to manage the account, right? I had a chiropractor approach me 3 years ago. He invented a pillow. He's like, I can't get this thing to sell. Put it on Amazon. I sold 2 units in like 6 months. Now, it's a $150 pillow, right? Has anybody spent $150 on a pillow before? That's a lot of money for a pillow. But it's a pretty cool pillow. He let me have one. I tried it out. I still use it today. I love it. But it's a really expensive pillow. And he was just doing FBM. He had one photo. He had one bullet point. He had no description. And he had no idea why I wasn't selling it, right? So I'm like, all right, let's do this. I don't want to buy your inventory. There's no proven demand. My wholesale approach is using products with proven demand, using tools to figure out if I can sell it and how much I can sell it. So there's no demand. So what I did is I don't want to buy your product because that's a lot of money, and how about instead I manage your account? Give me access to your account. I'll fix your photos. I'll fix your bullet points, your description. We'll send into FBA, and we'll see if we can get this moving. We'll try it for 6 months. If it works, keep it going. If it doesn't, we won't, right? So we've been doing this 3 years now. We average probably 4 or 5 pillows a day now, right? Because we fix things and we turned on ads, and people love his pillow. I convinced him to lower the price down to $130, and now it's starting to sell. That $20 is making a huge difference. It's starting to sell like crazy. We're doing like 2 a day, and now we're doing like 4 or 5 a day. So I got a $2,600 commission check from him last week. And I don't have to pay for anything. I set this up 3 years ago. All I have to do today is keep him in stock and make sure his ads continue to perform. That's it. It's super simple. It's hard. You got a lot of setup, a lot of work up front, but those accounts are great. Affiliate income, because I coach, I got a lot of softwares that I can recommend and stuff like that. So it's a small income, but that's an income source. All these smaller income sources, like, they add up over time. All right. So this is what the 4-day workshop at my warehouse consists of. If anybody's interested, coming out to Mesa, Arizona, this is what we talk about. It's 4 days, very intensive. I use my whole team to teach. Richard's here. Richard, wave at everybody. There's Richard in the back. Say hi to Richard. There's my rock star. So he's probably involved in a third of the coaching. You spend at least 3 hours in my warehouse learning how to prep properly, or he'll convince you to use us as a prep center. And then we talk about OA. We're starting to incorporate tactical arbitrage into the coaching as we learn it from Leah. Loving that course. And we use Smart Scout as our main sourcing tool for wholesale. We do it for OA as well, but definitely transitioning now to more tactical arbitrage. Wholesale, we talk about distributors, brand direct, contacting accounts, managing leads, all that stuff, right? Our super secrets, we'll tell you those. We're an open book. And then we talk about how we build the team. So a lot of great stuff if anybody wants to come out. Again, I believe wholesale adds stability, credibility, scalability to your business. And the way I have it set up, very systematized. I could sell it because I can be completely removed from it, and it continues to work really well. All right, so here is what I'm really excited about lately. This is what I removed myself from the business for 3 months. Right? Sound about right, Richard? Did I disappear for like 3 months to set this up? Something like that. And I think he was stressed. And I didn't really disappear. I was in the office next door. But I pulled myself out of my Amazon business to learn Turo. So we've been thinking about this for a while, and just hadn't pulled the trigger on it until February. So in February, I bought my wife a new Navigator, and her Range Rover is paid off. So instead of trading it in or selling it, we decided, let's try it. Let's go with this, and let's see if it works. So we put her Range Rover on Turo, and over the next 6 weeks, we had 85% occupancy of the car, charging $150 a day. Right, so we netted like almost $3,800 in 6 weeks. We're like, okay, this works. Let's do it. So kind of like what I do with all my stuff, in the next 6 or 7 weeks, I bought 7 cars. So I kind of went all in. I'll go back to that screen, but here's my cars.
Like Airbnb for cars?
It's Airbnb, yeah. So for people who don't know, Turo is like Airbnb for cars. It's people like me who either trying to cover a car payment, and they'll put their own personal car on the platform to cover the payment, or it's businesses who are actually buying cars for the exclusive purpose of renting it out on Turo. So these are my cars. I got a couple convertibles. I got my Z4 there, the Mach-E's, the electric Mustang, a couple Range Rovers, my Mercedes-Benz, and then a couple of Porsches. So I'm focused on the higher end because I'm trying to get a higher end client, a higher dollar. What's that?
I said no big deal.
No big.
Just $1 million.
No big deal. No, I didn't buy new. The Mach-E is almost new. I got it at like 200-300 miles. Someone ended up buying 2 cars and didn't need 2 cars, so I bought it from her out of steal. So anyways, these are my cars here. I sold my personal car. I sold my truck to get one of these. And anyway, so here's Turo. BLRP Properties is the business there. I've got 8 cars. This will be the quickest $0 to $100,000 profit business that I've ever created. Arnold Schwarzenegger You guys all know who he is, right? He was recently interviewed on a podcast, and he was asked, what's the easiest way to make money? And he said, well, the hardest is the first $1 million. So start with the second million. He thought it was funny. Actually, the people on the podcast didn't even laugh. They're like, that's a joke. So you'll notice as the first, in my opinion, the first $100,000 business is the hardest to build. And then the second $100,000 your business, that's much easier. And then the third $200,000 business is even easier, right? It gets easier. It starts really hard and it gets easier because you just learn how to do it. And so this will be, for me, the easiest, the quickest to $100,000. We did like $12,000 in, February, March, April, in May. And then the heat hit, and now we're having slow months. They're still good. We're still doing $8,000 a month in rentals on the slow months. In October, it's going to come back, and then it'll be great for 8 months. But real quick.
How do you determine which cars to buy?
That is a question for another time because that's a very complicated answer. I don't mind having that conversation with you, but it's basically looking at reviews and looking at models and based on your area. Yeah, you want to go into your area. Typically, if you live around a major airport, you can figure out like what's being rented by looking at the reviews of the models. So, but yeah, we can talk about that offline. I got like 10 minutes. So, but anyway, so I pull my warehouse employees to drive. So like what I love to do is I get in to the business and I focus on learning it and I bolt it down really good and then I remove myself. Right, so now, I don't deliver cars very often. I don't clean them very often. They get parked in my driveway and in my warehouse when they're not going out. But, Josh and Brad, and every once in a while Richard will help drive, but he's not driving too much. But I got just my warehouse employees. I'll just walk into the warehouse and be like, hey, Josh, got a booking today. You go clean this, go deliver it, and it's taken care of. So because I have this amazing team in place, I'm able to manage the quick scaling of the business and all that goes into it. And there are plenty of reasons why I went luxury instead of economy. And I could have went out and bought 15 economy cars for a lot cheaper, but that's 15 cars I have to wash and clean and deliver. Where like this 8 cars, I'm getting more per day, and I'm doing a lot less work doing it. And Phoenix happens to be a market where people are going there to look good. Like they're going to Scottsdale and they want to drive a nice car, so my market is really good for luxury cars, where other markets actually do a lot better with economy. So it's just about knowing your market. But anyways, that's it. So we're Power Host now, which is kind of cool. We got over 50 rentals. We're almost at 100 now. But anyways, big fan of Turo. If anyone wants to talk about it, it has nothing to do with e-commerce, but it does have everything to do with multiple income streams, right? So. And now we're not going to spend much time on this either, but getting into real estate, just bought our first Airbnb in St. George, Utah. If anybody loves to golf, we have an Airbnb in St. George, Utah. You can go golf, you can stay at Airbnb. It's right by a lake. And so our partners with that are actually my brother-in-law, sister-in-law, and then the Amazon Prep Center. So we started an Amazon Prep Center this year. As you can see, with 3 major launches this year with the Prep Center, the cars, and Airbnb and Turo, yep, and the Airbnb stuff. So the Prep Center, if anybody's interested in a Prep Center, we are kind of focusing on wholesale. Arizona is not a tax-free state, so you do have to pay your sales tax if you're doing OA, RA. Of course, if you're using a site that you can submit your resale certificate, then you don't. But we're trying to be cheaper than the tax-free states as far as cost per unit and bundles and stuff like that. But if you're doing wholesale, it's tax exempt anyways. So you don't have to worry about the tax implications. So that's kind of why our focus is in wholesale. But we do have low minimums. We're taking OA, RA. We're taking everything right now. So there's my other shameless plug. But Richard manages the sales side and the onboarding side of the Prep Center. So if anyone's interested in the Prep Center, he's the guy you'll talk to. We kind of made this agreement where Richard be the brains and the sales, roams the back, and I'm the money. So that's how we got started with that business. So, and then some stock investing. And then my wife does some just hobby stuff on the side. If you guys love TikTok, if you love comedy, she's on TikTok. She's got like 80,000 followers and just does these little comedy bits. It's fun. So she's on the TikTok Creators Fund. It gets like $2 a day. So it's nothing, but she loves it, right? So And then her Etsy shop is like she creates photo booth layouts. When she creates them for our business, she loads them into our Etsy account, and then other photo booth owners buy her designs for their events. So nice little income stream. So I guess just in closing thoughts here, I really want to iterate or stress that you really need to, if those are your goals, and again, we'll go back to goals because not everybody's goals are to be where I am, but some people are. So if you do want to create what I feel is a real business versus a hobby business, then you need to work towards owning the business and not operating in it. And you do that by saying no, right? No to those low dollar tasks and either missing out or delegating, right? Putting a team in place. You know, the community has been talking about virtual assistants a lot lately, right? So virtual assistants or employees, software, whatever your team is, put that team in place so that you can then remove yourself. And successful people own businesses. They don't own a business. They own multiple businesses, but they don't work in every one of them. They don't. Do you think if I was doing all this, I could even do all this? I'd be stretched so thin, I'd be crazy, right? But I got a great team that does it. With a solid core of leaders and employees in my business, I'm able to bolt down those new revenue streams. I learn them first myself, then I hire and train a team to manage it. And a good example of that, like I've stepped back into my Amazon business, and I am taking the OA Simplified class, right, myself. I could just assign an employee to do it, and I have. I've assigned Brad to do it. So Brad and I are taking this class together, and I want to learn it, and I want to know it really well. One, just in case Brad ever leaves me, I can train the next person. But two, I, as an owner, like to know most of the aspects of my business and learn them really well. So I'm going to learn it really well with him, and we'll communicate and collaborate together to make sure that he understands it really well. But within the next month, I'm going to be right back out of it. Right? I'm not going to be doing it. I'm not going to be running the tactical arbitrage scans or reviewing them. That's his thing that he's working with the VAs. But I jump in, I learn it, I bolt it down, and then I delegate. Be perfect. I'm sorry, because of their integrity standards, wealth continues to expand for successful people. I really believe this. I do believe you can be a person that lacks integrity and have short-term massive success. I think we've seen that in the world today. But I think long-term success comes from people with a high integrity score. People that say yes when they mean it and they say no when they can't. And when they know they can't, they delegate or they miss out. Be perfect in your integrity by evaluating your yeses and your nos. Find joy in the perfection of following through with your yeses, and find joy in saying no to commitments that you weren't going to follow through with anyways. So that is my presentation. I love the multiple income streams life that I have been able to create from this Amazon thing. It kind of started with events, but it was events in Amazon that really kind of expanded my mind and put me in a position to build a team to get where I am and where I'm going. So hopefully that came across well. Again, like I said, if you didn't like this presentation, I think the first one was pretty good. You can watch it. Do we have any questions? We have a little bit of time to spend time on questions. If you're wholesale, multiple streams of income, anything back here?
Yeah, so as a newer seller trying to establish these relationships, what tips would you give individuals? Because I heard that's the hardest part.
Relationships with wholesale accounts?
Wholesale accounts. How would you go about it? What are the criteria that they look at?
Yeah, so to get the account is the hardest part, right? I think you have to establish your business maybe a little bit differently than you would for just an OA business, right? I think you need a professional website that is a value-based website that sells your services. If you can have a second e-commerce business website, that's great too, or one together with e-commerce and value proposition. But the value proposition, I think, is huge. Sell yourself as an expert on e-commerce, right? You need an LLC so you can get your resale license. With wholesale, you have to submit a resale certificate. So you have to be registered with your state and the federal government, right? As far as like getting the accounts is the hardest part, right? Developing the relationship comes over time and phone calls and emails and all that stuff. But I think a huge part of getting wholesale accounts also is finding a creative way to have a commercial address if you can. When we got into our first warehouse, we went from like 1 out of 50, 1 out of 100 requests would accept us for a wholesale account to where now we're probably like 1 out of 25. And it's because we have, one, it's our criteria where we're contacting the right accounts to begin with, but two, it's the fact that we have a commercial address. And in dealing with wholesale, brands and distributors want to see that you're a legitimate business. And not that you're not legitimate if you're running out of your house, but a lot of brands don't see you as legitimate, right? So if you can partner with someone who has a warehouse or has a space that you can kind of use their address, or there's some creative ways I put in my course to do that, but
I have a separate office. It is
yeah,
in a corporate center park.
that's perfect.
I just registered as an LLC. I got
Yeah.
my social certificate, all that stuff. So,
Yeah.
but the website doesn't have it.
Okay, so the website, commercial address, all that's like your base core to help you land more accounts. Now with that said, we built $1 million wholesale business out of my house with the residential address. You can still get accounts with the residential address, so don't not do it, right? Spencer, you got tons of accounts with your residential address, right, before you got it work. Yeah.
We did have somebody drive by and say, it looks like a house. I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, so it's definitely possible. It just makes it a little bit easier with the commercial address. And then maintaining that relationship, just calling them monthly. Placing a PO every month goes a huge way to developing that relationship. You know, and occasionally calling them, working on MAP with them. You know, Richard and our VA do an incredible job of reporting MAP violations and just bringing, hey, by the way, did you know so-and-so? Like, no, we didn't know that. And then, especially when they're not really enforcing it, plenty of them make you sign something, but then won't ever check. And we've gotten semi-exclusive agreements where brands have 10, 15 sellers, and we help them with MAP, and now they have 2 or 3. And they include us in that because we're helping them. So there's all those things you can do about the relationship. So hope that helps. Any other questions? Right here.
So it's kind of like a similar question, but not quite the same. There's a subtle difference between wholesale accounts and PPP, or maybe not even subtle. It's either you're buying wholesale from them and selling, or you are consulting with them and helping them grow.
Yeah.
Now, if I have, say, like 5 years experience and I'm doing really well, whatever, and I'm going to ASD because I live outside the United States, but I'm here already, I may as well go there too.
Absolutely.
We'll see you there.
I will. You have to look anyway. What would you recommend as what would you recommend as a better strategy, or to do half one strategy and half the other strategy? Because it's like when you're talking wholesale, it's go speak to the Amazon friendly sellers. When you're speaking PPP, it's maybe go speak to the Amazon unfriendly sellers and understand why they're unfriendly. What would you say?
So my experience from ASD, we've been going there for years, and I feel it's one of those conventions, trade shows that's way oversaturated with Amazon sellers. You'll talk to brands and like, oh, you're the 50th Amazon seller I've talked to today. No, you can't buy my product, right? So I like approaching ASD from a consulting standpoint, to be honest with you. We may approach other conventions slightly different, where we do a little bit of both, depending on how the conversation goes. I love the consulting angle, honestly, especially with ASD. Everyone's coming at that, hey, can I buy your product strategy at ASD. So if you go in with, like, how can I help you with your Amazon account, the consulting one, for me.
So go speak to the ones who are not Amazon friendly.
Most of them are not Amazon friendly at ASD.
This year they have a mock to say, we are Amazon friendly,
Oh, wow.
we are not.
That's cool. I
And you
haven't
guys
seen that.
slice and dice that.
That must be a recent change. 'Cause I didn't even see that
Never
in
seen
March.
it.
We went in
Relevant,
March,
they
but
have it this year.
okay. And not to say, like, I think we've landed a wholesale account almost every time we've gone to ASD, right? So you definitely can, but I like the consulting angle. When we go to specialty ones, like we're thinking of going to a specialty one here in a couple weeks in Vegas, and so we're missing ASD. I think we're going to go to that one. It's specialty into just that one category. And I think we're going to approach it probably more from the wholesale angle. But we'll have to gauge how the conversation goes, because some conversations will just end up different. So did you have a question?
Yeah. So on bolting down a business, because we all love shiny objects and we
Yes.
20 different directions.
Yeah.
What do you consider a business to be bolted down before you start looking at other income streams? You know, is it when you're only 50% or you're only 20% involved or you're 5%?
Yeah, because I've got so much going on, if it's not at least like 90% bolted in,
Yeah.
like it's not bolted in.
Okay.
right? If I can't, if I still oversee a lot of stuff, like I still take a lot of the phone calls for the photo booth, right? But I don't do the events, right? I'll still go in, and actually now most of my guys train the new employees. I don't even train the new employees anymore, right? So that one's like bolted in. But I think for me it's got to be like 90%, or you end up with that shiny object syndrome, and you're not finished here, and you go over here, but then this starts suffering and doesn't perform like you wanted to because you're over here and you're over here. So, yeah, I've had that problem in the past. Like there's a lot of great opportunities out there, right? You just have to learn to say no when it doesn't fit. So we're kind of running out of time, but I'll take as many questions as you guys want to keep asking. But back here.
How do you find like a wholesale list? Like, is it only going on the ASB or any other client? And the second question is like, how do you determine like the monthly revenue more than 2,000?
The monthly okay, so the monthly revenue, we use tools. We love Smart Scout. We used to use Jungle Scout for the longest time. You're just getting sales estimates based on the monthly average of the bestseller rank, and then you can get sales estimates with Jungle Scout or Smart Scout. That's the tools we use. You can do it manually. You can do it like with Keepa. If you look at the drops and then multiply the drops by the resell, you can see if it's enough. But Keepa drops don't always tell you the full picture. You can see 30 Keepa drops and it still sells 100 times, right? So we go with sales estimations with like Jungle Scout Sales Estimator. It's a free tool. You just don't plug in the current rank, plug in the monthly average rank and the category. And then it'll tell you how many times that product sells a month based on Jungle Scout's estimate, right? It's not 100% accurate, right? So don't trust it completely. But it gives you a gauge of about how many times it sells a month. Then you multiply that by the resell, and you'll get the average monthly sales, right? So first question, I'm sorry, what was the first question again?
How do you find a list of like wholesalers?
So I don't like lists of wholesalers. What we do in our business, and if you take the wholesale course, I teach it in there. But basically, we like to use Smart Scout. Again, we used to use Jungle Scout, and I do teach ways how to do it without a tool. But basically, we plug in those parameters that I told you, and it'll go and data mine for products that fit those parameters. And then we do Google searches for those brands. We find the brand's website. We find their email address, their phone number, and then we reach out and contact them one at a time. So my virtual assistant does most of that for us, and Richard as well. My virtual assistant right now, she's contacting a minimum of 75 suppliers a week. And so she's just firing off tons and tons of emails. And then as we get responses, Richard steps in and handles the response. If we don't get responses, then Richard makes phone calls and calls them on the phone personally. So I'm not a fan of lists because lists are too easy for hundreds and hundreds of people to get them, right? So if it's on a list and everybody's looking at that supplier, then they're not the supplier for me. So any other questions? Yeah. So Smart Scout is definitely our wholesale tool of choice. We're just going to bolt in this OA with TA. It's a lot of acronyms. OA with TA. What's that? I'm liking TA. There's definitely challenges and frustrations with it. We've been using it now, I think, 5 or 6 weeks. We've found enough product to pay for itself a few times over already. So we're gonna stick with it. But so far we're liking it. So and we're only 20%. Sorry, we're only 20% OA. We're like 80% wholesale, and so we're still kind of liking it.
So you guys are just testing this OA course because it's not available to the public.
Did they close it? Okay. Yeah, I purchased it when it came out, and so we got into it. But
They had so many people they had to cap it.
oh, okay. Gotcha. They'll open it back up. They'll open it back up, and you'll get access to the recorded calls and stuff like that. It will go into the pack too, but I'll bet you that you get access to it again first. But sorry, one question here, and then we'll go back over here.
Where did you learn about Turo?
Where did we learn about Turo? Well, one, I kind of like. Can you hear me? Oh, where did we learn about Turo? So I think we had a friend. So my wife's trainer did it for a couple of months with his Teslas. And so that was over a year ago that he started doing it. So we kind of learned that it was even out there from that. So I did the research myself. I did YouTube videos, Facebook groups, and just dove in and just taught myself as much as I could to learn like what cars to pick and stuff like that. So back here.
I have the same question. How did you learn everything? Course anything? Or what is kind of initial investment in the franchisee fee or something on that one?
I'm,
He's gonna have
I'm-
a course coming out.
yeah, I got a course coming out here soon. I don't, but you can ask me questions. I just done YouTube videos. Honestly, YouTube videos. I've joined all the Facebook groups. Just trying to figure it out myself. There is one group of like coaches that I know of. I might pay them $500 to learn what they know, and I've done that along the way, right? Like, I mean, I paid $2,000 to learn some wholesale stuff, and I spent another couple $1,000s to learn wholesale from somebody else, and years ago, right? So I am of the opinion that if I can get an expert's knowledge on something, you can learn a lot from YouTube, but a lot of people don't tell you everything on YouTube, right? So this guy seems pretty trustworthy so far. I've been following him for a few months, so I might pay this guy $500 to learn a little bit from him, but I know there was a couple more. Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm not catching all that.
How do you use your resale certificate in regards to tax?
Okay, sorry. Thank you. Thank you. I'm deaf, man. I really am. Like, I have a hard time filtering out noise, so if there's other noise, I can't filter it out. So we're going to blame Richard on that. So with wholesale, everything is tax exempt because in order to even get an account, you have to submit your resale certificate. And so when you're doing wholesale, you're buying it for the intent of reselling it. So just by that nature, it is tax-free. So you won't have a single wholesale account where you ever pay sales tax. Yeah, it's taxed on the sell to the end user, and not at the business level. When it's business to business transaction, there's no sales tax. Sorry, right here. Yes. No. TA for OA. The TA for OA, we're not using the wholesale side of it because the wholesale side of it is scans price lists. We're using Price Checker 2 right now for that. I have used TA's wholesale scanner and it's great. So if you're using TA, we already had Price Checker, and so we just kept it that way. But if you're already using TA and you want to get into wholesale, add that wholesale section for sure, and it does the scanning of the price lists. So we've done that before we had TA like 3 years ago, and we only used the wholesale side of it then. But it doesn't do scans to find wholesale products, if that's the question. It's only scanning. It doesn't do scans of like websites and stuff. It scans Excel price lists and then tells you what on Amazon would be profitable based off of that price list.
Do you see including that in your course in the future? Because I bought the OA Simplified course,
Mm-hmm.
so I'm very new to SBA, but I know there was a wholesale section.
Honestly, that section is super easy. Like if you take my wholesale course, we'll talk about getting price lists and how to work price lists. And we talk about it from a standpoint of working it manually and then using either Price Checker or Analyzer tools to just plug it into the software and have it scan it. That would just be equally applicable to the TA side of it. You just upload the file, you pick your columns, you enter your parameters, and you just tell it to scan it. And TA has, they have a couple of tutorials that you could watch. It's really easy. It's you upload the Excel file, and it does it for you. So, yeah. All right. We're like 15 minutes over. I know you guys want to get going, but hey, right there. You have a question?
If you have to choose between wholesale and OA, like if you can only do one and one.
Wholesale, 100 times over, right? We are 80% or better at wholesale. OA feels like a constant hunt, right? Sometimes you find replenishable products, sometimes you don't. I have accounts that I've had for 7 years We found them within the first 6 years or 6 months of our business. I, to this day, sell $20,000 a month in these brands at 18% profit margin, and I have every month for the last 7 years. I don't have a single OA, RA product that has lasted that long, right? So I love wholesale because of that. I don't know, I got 5, 6 accounts that I've had for 7 years, right? So, and accounts come and go. Like sometimes brands will decide to take it in-house. Sometimes they'll go exclusive and they'll kick you off. Sometimes it just, they don't have a map in place, and so the price does deteriorate after a while, and you just lose it, right? Like we just brought an account back that we landed 5, 6 years ago. We sold it for 2 years. It became unprofitable for a year, and now it's beautiful again. Like we had that account before. We reached back out to them like, hey, we know we haven't bought from me for a couple of years, but is our account still active? They're like, yeah, sure is. And so at this point, like we figured out negotiating, and we figured out how to get better pricing. And 2 years later, we're making better profit margin than we did before when we used to sell it. So it's just the longevity and the scalability. You know, Richard spent last week looking at wholesale accounts. He spent maybe 4 hours total, landed an account. Well, Marga found the account, right? Richard submitted the application and got the price list, worked through the price list, found a dozen SKUs that we estimate will make just under $4,000 profit a month. I think it's like 3,800, right? Something like that. And then we're just estimating. Like we don't know until we actually do it. But he spent maybe a total of 4 hours finding all of that, right? And we're going to be able to sell that month in over and over again. And it's got solid MAP pricing that has never been violated in over a year, right? So that's why I love wholesale. And that's why, like, if I had one to choose, that's where I would go. So, back here. Absolutely. Absolutely. If they don't, we try to put one in place. We work with the brand and try to get one, but absolutely, because that price, the war to the bottom, isn't very common. It happens, but.
So are you bouncing your price list off of Amazon manually? Is that what you guys do?
The price list, we work several ways. Like with the scanner, we'll bounce it off of Amazon, right? And then we work it manually and kind of go through like by brand, and we'll go product by product or brand by brand. We'll evaluate a brand, and if the brand sells well, then we'll go product by product. If that brand doesn't sell well or doesn't sell at all, we don't even evaluate that brand's price list.
What do you use
But
to see if that brand sells well? Is that
Smart Scout. So we use Smart Scout and do a brand analysis and see, is Amazon selling it? How many FBA sellers? Does it sell well? Does it not? And we can eliminate usually like 10,000 line item price lists. We can eliminate half the brands just by profiling the brand. So I think we had one more. We should probably wrap it up. But so the cost, I believe the cost was $10,000. I am working with Matt to get that lowered. I would love to have a lower price point where more people can come out. So we'll probably do bigger groups at a lower price. So talk to Matt. See, I really hope he has lowered the price. I know last year when we talked about it, it was $10,000. So everybody who came last year was paying $10,000. So I hope it's lower. Talk to Matt. He's got the details on that, though. It's 4 days. Yeah, we try to do it 2 days on the weekend and then 2 weekdays. So it's usually Thursday through Sunday or Saturday through Tuesday, so that it doesn't affect much of our work week at the warehouse. So I will keep answering questions. Feel free to leave if you need to leave, but I'll hang around and answer questions as long as you have them. So thanks for coming, guys.